For those of you who didn't catch my presentation earlier, my name is Ewan Fisher. I'm a product lead at Google. I'm going to be doing a presentation now announcing one of our new products that we're actually launching in Russia as of today. So this is Ads Data Hub. So this is our new reporting suite that we have inside Google. Before I do that, I just want to say thank you to all of those who have come and visited us at the stand and have taken part in these, if you look at these two guys right now dancing away. Everybody just stare at them and make them feel more uncomfortable when they're doing it. And we can have a look at some of the other people that have done it. Two people who know how to do it. And I think we've got another one as well. And we recognize these guys as well. Very serious. Very serious. If you've not already done one, please come and do one after. Okay, so if we go back to the presentation, I now get a little bit more serious. So, Ads Data Hub. Has anyone even heard of Ads Data Hub before? Now, I know there's a few of you who have said you've heard of it, that have already been asking me for more information. So, what actually is Ads Data Hub? So, Ads Data Hub is Google's privacy-safe, enterprise-grade platform that brings ads data together and allows our customers to achieve better analysis and better results from it. So this is quite a big statement. The key part you'll notice there is privacy-safe, enterprise-grade, being bold and underlined. And I'll take some time to explain exactly what I mean about that. So, our main pillars inside Ads Data Hub are 4 areas. So first of all, one of the biggest requests we get at Google is that Google has lots of data. We have lots of data about our users. We have something like 9 billion users which are actively signed into our products across 9 key products, such as Google Maps, YouTube's, Gmail, the documents, that are fully signed in users across multiple devices. 9 billion users. And a lot of our clients ask us and say, Google, you have this data. We're running campaigns with you. We want to combine our campaign data with the data that Google holds. But at the same time, us as Google, have that data from people like yourselves that have chosen to share that data with Google. And we meant to give advertisers access to more of the Google data, but at the same time, we want to ensure that we keep user privacy, that the data that you choose to share with us, we keep safe, we keep private, and we don't share with other people that allows them to identify you as an individual. Because that's your data, not our data. So the second part is the analysis piece. So when you run a campaign with Google, you want to understand what happened with that campaign. What were the results of that campaign? Was it successful? Did it increase my brand measurement? Did it lead to more sales? Our user interfaces for a number of reports from Campaign Manager, Display and Video 360, G360, YouTube, and the Google Display Ads all have the ability to run reports inside the UI. And they're easy to run reports. But quite often, you don't have the ability to do some of the custom reporting that you want to do. And we want to enable you to do this. And then the third piece is activation. So we don't just want to make you able to analyze the data. We want to be able to make you and give you the power to activate on the back of that data as well. And then finally, we see Ads Data Hub as a replacement for the pixel-based measurement from third parties. So as some of you will be aware, we made some changes to YouTube last year. And this was for 2 reasons. So one, YouTube moved to a cross-screen environment for tracking purposes. So now when you run a YouTube campaign, you can run to signed-in users across multiple devices. And as we said earlier, 1 in 4 people that complete a purchase will go through a cycle of moving through devices. We wanted to bring more data to advertisers when they're reaching users and running campaigns on YouTube. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure we were protecting users' privacy. So we made the decision to remove third-party tracking from our YouTube campaigns, but give those advertisers the ability still to measure through Ads Data Hub. So think of Ads Data Hub as Google data in the cloud. So this is all campaign data. So on the back of any campaigns, there's no organic data. There's no organic search data. There's no organic YouTube data. This is from campaigns you run across Display and Video 360, Campaign Manager, Google Display Ads, and YouTube, both on the reservation side and the auction data. And we give you the access to that data through Google Cloud, part of the Google Cloud platform. So Ads Data Hub actually contains of a number of different pieces. There is a Google-owned BigQuery project. There's a customer-owned BigQuery project. And there's the API as well. So let me break this down to some more understandable information. So the first one is our Google-owned BigQuery account. Now, this is where the ads data sits. This is owned by Google, hosted by Google, and paid for by Google. We don't give you direct access to this data set. So you cannot log in, you cannot see the raw data, you cannot run select star on this data. We protect this data because this is where it has individual user data that we want to ensure the privacy of. The next piece is the customer-owned data set. So the customer-owned data set is fully on their GCP contract. It's where, when you run a query in Ads Data Hub, the results of that query will be written to the customer-owned project, but also where you can upload your own first-party data that you want to join with ads data. But one thing to note is Google doesn't have access to this data set. So no human at Google can read this data. Even our engineers at Google are unable to go in and actually access this data. This enables you to start bringing your own first-party data that you previously didn't feel comfortable sharing with Google and be able to analyze it in your own ways. So the third part is the actual API itself. So Ads Data Hub is built primarily on the back of BigQuery, as you see. It's SQL as a language. BigQuery is SQL specifically. And what the API does is it allows you to run a query, to go through our privacy checks, and then analyze the data in your data set, so your first-party data, and our data set, the Google data, join the two together, run a bunch of different privacy checks on it. And we do this to ensure the user privacy. So I can come into that in a second. But then the outputs of that are written to your BigQuery data set. So if you think of Ads Data Hub as a data warehouse, so a data warehouse where all your campaign data is stored, allowing you to do post-analysis on the back of that. It also has access to the individual log-level data and individual user level, so you can join your data and our data on an individual user's. But when you export that, one of the privacy checks we do is we make sure that it's a minimum of 50 users. So every row that's returned of the table has to be an aggregated minimum of 50 users, which for large campaigns, large analysis is fine. So what are we actually doing with Ads Data Hub today? So we're doing a number of different things, and the first one is scalability. So Ads Data Hub is a very new product for us. We started working on it about 2 years ago now. And what we've been doing is we've been ramping up on our engineering team. So now we have 52 engineers that are building Ads Data Hub based out in our LA office. And we are enabling a number of new features to make it more scalable for you to work with. So we've been improving UI functionality. We're allowing you to map your own data rather than having to do it through us. We're giving you ability to control user access. A number of different things that will make the product easier to use for you moving forward. The next part is access to Google data. So I said before, we're giving you access to DV360, Campaign Manager, YouTube on the reservation and auction side, and Google Display Ad side. But we know that you want access to more data. So we're having conversations with pretty much every ads team inside Google about bringing their data into Ads Data Hub, sorry, so that you'd be able to then access and join this data with your own first-party client data. The next piece is to continue allowing you to do this custom measurement. So as I said, BigQuery is based on the SQL, and ADH runs on SQL. And we chose that to work in BigQuery for 2 reasons. One is that we know that BigQuery has been specifically built to process petabytes of data in a matter of seconds. The second piece is that because BigQuery is our own infrastructure, we can ensure that user privacy. So we have control of the data, we know it's locked down, and we know that it can't be abused, and your individual data can't be accessed and used in a way that you wouldn't be comfortable with it being used. I said before, we don't just want to enable you to do analysis on this. We want to be able to make you activate on this. So we're bringing the ability today that you can actually do some analysis with your ads data, joining it with first-party data, then bring that data back into Display and Video 360, bring it into Google Display Ads, and actually remarket to those users. I mentioned earlier about being able to use the Google algorithms to do lookalike modeling as well. So you could identify high-value users from offline metrics, and then you could upload them to Google Display Ads, build lookalike audiences on them, and target more of those people through the products. And the other piece is we want to enable to give you a single view of the user. So you might be having your own tracking just now with your clients that has, you have your own CRM IDs, you know what a user is in your CRM system. We bring the ability that you can join your CRM IDs, the ID that's known to you, to the ads data as well. We do this through having match tables that are hosted by Google on our privacy-safe servers. The final piece is obviously privacy. So you'll notice that I'm saying this word every single time on every slide. And that's because the number one thing at Google, not just Ads Data Hub, is user privacy. So with everything we're doing, everything we design and everything we build, user privacy is always the first thing that comes up. And Ads Data Hub is being built as the user privacy point of access for advertisers so that you can analyze the ads data and we can ensure that user privacy is adhered to at all times. So what are people actually doing with Ads Data Hub today? So I have a few examples, and this one with a beauty and cosmetic company. They were running campaigns through Display and Video 360, but it was a global company. So they actually were working with multiple agencies across the globe, multiple different regions, as I'm sure some of you are familiar with. What they knew was happening is that with their multiple brands, they were actually all reaching the same users, and they were overexposing that user to that brand. It may be different products that they were exposing, but the brand messaging was still being overexposed and not what the brand was happy with. Ads Data Hub allowed them to take data from multiple DV360, Display and Video 360 partner accounts, combine them together, and then bring reach reporting and say, well, how much are we actually exposing our users to? They then were able to do manual optimizations to say which campaigns are doing overexposure and reduce their media wastage. Another example is a cinema company that we have in the US. So like a lot of clients, these were the guys that actually build and design our movies. So when they release a movie, they obviously run a marketing campaign because they want people to come and see that film. They don't have a cinema. They don't sell tickets to the cinema. All they do is promote people to come and see their films. They were able to partner with a movie cinema in the US who were able to start sharing with them actual ticket sales data. And they were able to do this through Ads Data Hub. So what happened was you see and you're exposed to a video on YouTube or an ad somewhere on your mobile or on desktop that tells you about this new film that's come out. You then, through a third-party website, purchase a ticket to go and see that film. The cinema was then able to actually record their cinema data. The cinema knows you as a user. You've purchased a ticket from them, and was able to share that back with the advertiser without exposing individual users. So there was no way for the cinema's individual personal data that you provided to be shared with the advertiser. They were able to then analyze it together and discover which specific videos, which specific campaigns were driving people to actually attend the movies. In the end, they found that being able to understand what was driving people to actually sit down in the cinema was able to lead to an additional 20% of ticket sales for them. We have a credit card company as well doing something even different. So they're looking at doing better fraud detection through Ads Data Hub. And the way they're doing this is by looking at the first-party data signals that they have. So they know what happens when you fill in your credit card application. They can then take that first-party data and look at the journey that happened before to start noticing trends. So for example, people that were applying for credit cards multiple times and were being declined, they were fraud transactions. They flagged that. They then looked and said, well, what does the pattern leading up to that look like? How many ad exposures do these people get? What type of sites are they exposed to? And with that, they were able to actually stop advertising and start blocking people from actually applying for the credit cards that they detected were fraudulent. We have a number of retail clients actually at the moment looking at profitability information with us. And this is, I think, is a great use case. So we've always had it in the past where you have an advertiser, e-commerce advertiser, sells products online. When that sale happens, you fire a floodlight tag, passing data back to Google that contains the order ID and the basket value. So in Google products, we can actually report on how many sales did you get and what was the value of those sales. But what advertisers have never done in the past is passed us the profitability of each of those sales for two reasons. One, they don't want to expose on a floodlight tag on their website how much profit they're making, because that informs all their competitors and informs each user who's purchasing how much profit they're making. But then also, they didn't want to share that data with Google. They didn't want Google to know how much profit they were making from which media buy. With Ads Data Hub, they can upload a list of their order IDs with a list of the profit they made in each one of those orders, upload them to their first-party data set. And as I said before, Google can't see that first-party data set. We don't have access to it. It's owned by you, hosted by you, and it's your data. But you can join on it easily and then actually start saying, OK, well, what campaigns are actually driving my profitable sales? What videos are driving my profitable sales? How many users are watching 50% of a video that then leads to more profitable sales? We also have a number of other brands, for example, finance, that are taking offline data and bringing it back into us. So for example, a finance one we had was looking at life insurance. So life insurance, you get a quote online. That quote then goes to underwriting through a bunch of different offline processes, and then we make the decision if that insurance policy is being offered or not. Previously, they were doing all their marketing based on quotes. So it was lead to quote. Now, they're able to start bringing that data back in through Ads Data Hub and say, well, where are my actual sales coming from? Which media channels, which media exposures are leading to my sales? And bring that data back in and start optimizing now towards sales. When it comes to rule-based attribution, so there's a number of different ways people typically look at attribution. So there's our default floodlight model, which is the last click, or if no click exists in the path, then last impression. There's the last touch point, so the last impression or click, first touch point, or position-based. And these are all available through our user interfaces in Campaign Manager, and I would encourage you to experiment with that. However, for sometimes you want to dive a bit deeper, or you want to tweak some of these algorithms. So inside Ads Data Hub, for example, you could say, well, I actually only want to give credit to an impression if that ad was actually seen by a human. So using our active view metrics for viewability, you can say, I don't want to give credit for this impression because it wasn't viewed. Or I know from this media channel they're not passing viewability, so I want to give it slightly less weight than an impression that I know was definitely seen by a human. I mentioned before the offline events, so stitching in offline events that we don't have access to in Campaign Manager. And then looking at custom rules. Is the value of a retargeting impression the same as a prospecting impression? Is the value of an in-market impression the same as a custom infinity impression? Contextual impressions, search for brands, search for prospecting, they're not all worth the same. And you as advertisers and analysts know what each value of an impression is worth. What channels have more value? So you can create your own custom rules to score different impressions. For example, the last one there, we say, well, I only want to give a video credit if the video was watched for more than 50% of time with the sound on. And you can set these kind of rules up inside Ads Data Hub and perform your own custom attribution. The final piece is the tracking for third-party ad servers. So as I mentioned, protecting user privacy, we decided to remove pixels from the YouTube tracking, but we also brought cross-screen analytics in as well. So the third parties that used to measure didn't have access to mobile data. Mobile impressions on YouTube are almost half. So you were only actually able to measure half of your media campaigns through desktop. Now we give the ability to measure both through desktop and through mobile, and also cross-screen, which we know, as I said, 1 in 4 users is moving between. So we're now giving you access to more Google data than we actually gave you access to before. So to summarize, people are really using Ads Data Hub for expanding their existing reporting, bringing in the rule-based attribution, and looking at cross-screen analytics as well on the YouTube side. The other part to mention is that previously, we never gave people access to the resettable device IDs for mobile app campaigns. Now we're bringing that ability back in. So inside Ads Data Hub, you actually have the device IDs. So if you have an advertiser who has a mobile app, and you have the device IDs for those mobile apps, you can easily join it and see what events inside an app were created on the back of a media impression. So say, for example, you run an advertising campaign, and you want to know if that advertising campaign led users who had already installed the app to start engaging again with the app. So you could take a list of all the device IDs that had, say, been non-active for 30 days and had suddenly become active again, upload them to Ads Data Hub and say, have they been exposed to any media that has led them to start being more engaged with my app? One of the case studies that we recently launched with a hotel group in Spain, the Barcelo Hotel Group, they were running their media through a number of different publishers. They wanted to understand what was the true lift of every single publisher. How much was a publisher adding value to their media plans? So they ran a report inside Ads Data Hub that looked at the unique reach per publisher and what the unique reach was, what the overlap reach was. So which publishers are actually reaching new users and which publishers are actually just reaching the same people. By doing this, they started to identify a number of different publishers that weren't really adding value to their media plans and were able to start taking them off. This actually gave them a 9% saving in their cost per booking. And this is just them getting started with the product. So they're already saving 9% on every single booking they make. The other point to mention is that if any of you were familiar with our data transfer product, they previously did this with data transfer too. But doing it inside Ads Data Hub, they actually had access to more user IDs that were previously zeroed out inside data transfer. So we were already protecting, had a number of privacy restrictions inside the data transfer product. But with Ads Data Hub, because you don't have access to the individual user information, we're able to bring that. So what they had was they had 22% more user IDs in Ads Data Hub than they did with DT. So it allows you to do more granular analysis, having access to extra data. So I talked a lot about what you can do with it, but how does it actually work? So as I said earlier, it really starts with SQL. So we encourage you to write your own queries. We have our developer site where we give examples of queries. And then you use that query in potentially our sandbox first of all. So we have a BigQuery sandbox which gives you access to dummy tables with dummy data, with dummy user IDs, and dummy device IDs as well. And you can use this for engineering up a query. So here's an example. So we can see inside we've got the user ID field, device ID field, and then we've got all the normal fields that we would expect to see inside Campaign Manager data. When you've then got a query that you're happy with running on the sample data, it's then time to bring it into Ads Data Hub. And there's two ways that you can run it through Ads Data Hub. There's a developer API and a web UI. And Ads Data Hub is very much designed as an API-first product. So the web UI is fully built off the functionality of the API, meaning everything you can do in our UI can be done through the API, which allows you to develop your own applications. It allows you to connect your own systems with. If you're familiar with any of the Google APIs, you'll be able to pick up our developer API for Ads Data Hub overnight. Same functionality, same login, same methodology for calling it, and same libraries that are available as well. If you're not familiar with our APIs, then the web UI is a great place to start. So this is the web UI. So it's not a drag and drop interface. It's not like any of the reporting infrastructure we have. It's more like BigQuery. So it allows you to write your own SQL in the My Query section. We have the My Job section, which allows you to run the query. So you create a query. You can provide parameters and say this is a parameter for advertiser ID or campaign ID. Then when you run the query, you can choose to run it on specific campaigns without having to rerun the query every time. When you run that query then, it'll run on our ads data that we host. It can connect to your data that you host. And you can join it together. And there's 3 ways that you can join it. So the first way and the most simple way, as I talked about before, device IDs are there. So if you have a mobile app campaign, you already have device IDs. And you can directly join them through SQL, those 2 data sets together. If you don't have device IDs and you're working with a web advertiser, then you probably have another ID that's already available. So for example, in insurance, a quote ID. So when someone gets an online quote, you see a quote ID. That quote ID would typically go into the client's CRM system and then be followed through all the way to sale. If you expose that data to us in Ads Data Hub, then you can join directly on those fields. And then the third space is the connected ID space. The connected ID space is really useful if you have like multiple different properties, or for example, with the cinema advertiser. So the cinema advertiser wasn't running their own campaigns, but they had their own user ID space that was known to that cinema as this is a user. And they're able to do a cookie match that's hosted on Google servers so that they can translate their cinema CRM IDs into Google user IDs. So when you run the query, we then run it through our privacy checks. So as I said, this is mainly about ensuring that our users' privacy is adhered to at all times. So one of those things I talked about was the minimum of 50 users. There's a bunch of other privacy checks we actually do to ensure that there's no possible way that you can actually ever identify a single user and a single user's journey in that data. And by doing that, that means that we feel comfortable as Google giving you access to more of the data that we have. Once the query completes, rather than displaying it through the UI, we actually write it directly to your own BigQuery dataset. And because it sits then in your BigQuery dataset, your table, your BigQuery dataset, you can do whatever you want with it. Google don't have access to that data anymore. So you can join it with further data that you have for first-party data. You can even do things like data visualization. So using our free product, Data Studio, you can actually start creating dashboards on the results of this campaign data and exposing that to other users inside the business, or exposing it to clients directly. You control the data access. Someone might have access, not have access, to one of our platforms, like DB360, but you could create through Ads Data Hub reporting that they can have access to through Data Studio. So you can see through this flow that Ads Data Hub is actually a much more complex product than you're used to with the likes of analytics or Campaign Manager or Display and Video 360 or YouTube reporting. And we recognize that Ads Data Hub won't be a product that's for everyone. We don't expect every advertiser and partner to want to jump on the back of this product. We have a number of reports that are available through the UIs that are easy to use, give you access, quick access to the information that you need. But if you're an advanced advertiser and have the skill set and want to go deeper inside that data, we give you the ability to be able to bring your own technical abilities, bring your own first-party data, and work with it in this privacy-safe environment. So as I said at the very start, we class this as an enterprise-grade product. And this is why this is like bold and underlined. And we do accept that it's not for everyone. Our plans at the moment is to now start launching this in Russia. So we've launched it in other markets in EMEA, and now we're going to start launching it in Russia. If you do feel that this is a product that would be useful for you, then please speak to your Google sales reps and get information to them about what your use cases are. And we'd love to start partnering with some of you here today to actually get you onboarded onto the product, building use cases with you, and then helping you roll them out to your businesses. Do I have time for questions? I got time for 2 questions, and everyone's being really shy. So I have 2 battery packs and 2 of our cups left. Only 2. So anyone that asks a question can get one of these. I thought that guy had his hand up, but he's just waving at someone at the back. Any questions? Okay.
So thank you very much for a great presentation. I'm the next speaker, but I am from offline world. So can you elaborate a little bit on how do you connect the data with the offline transaction? I saw it on your slide.
Yeah, so it's probably one of the biggest questions is how you join offline data. We don't do it for you, first of all. So what we do is we enable you to capture that data online already and pass it to us. So if, for example, with an insurance company where you've got that online quote or you've got an online sale, there's always an ID that's exposed on the website. So like a code ID, an order ID, and that's usually already filtering into the client's CRM system. So it's really easy to then just start instantly using that. If you have a logged in users, for example, so if people are signing in, maybe you're an energy provider, and people are signing in to give their meter readings. Maybe you're a mobile phone company. People are signing in to check when their upgrade is due or how much they've spent on their latest bill. There's a CRM ID that you know, and you can start exposing through the Google tags, and then I'll start appearing in Ads Data Hub. Then you can start joining that information. Makes sense?
Thank you for presentation. I wanted to know, is that product could be linked with offline shopping? You know, for grocery shops, there is a report offline shopping. Could that data be joined in this cloud?
Do you mean the Google offline data?
Yeah.
Or your own offline data?
I mean Google Analytics report for offline shopping.
Yeah. So today, no, but it is something we're looking at. So as I mentioned, what we're trying to do is we believe that Ads Data Hub will become the kind of like Google data out. So every part of Google that wants to start sharing data with clients will have to do it through Ads Data Hub. And we're trying to do it in a way that it's already like joined up for you as well. So like today, we don't have G360 data coming in at all, but we're looking at being able to bring that in and immediately connect it to the double-click data so that you don't have to be joining that together. You'd be able to run a query and say, okay, I want to know people that were exposed to this media that then spent this amount of time on site. So it is something we're looking at. The privacy areas, questions we need to get around, but it's definitely something we're looking at.
Yeah. Thank you.
John?
One more question.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Are there any use cases for publishers? Because we are publishers and we use DoubleClick for publishers, and we want to sell extended segments for our clients. So yes.
Yeah, we have a number of publishers that are starting to use this product from the, I forget the new name for DFP, Google Ad Manager, that are looking at combining their own ads data from ads run on their site with other data that they're running through DV360 or that they're selling media through other advertisers to bring to their site. So yes, is my answer. Let's connect, and I can give you some examples after, if that's okay. And there's one more. Yeah.
One more.
Hi, my name is Natalia. I have a final question for how you guys going to make pricing. So is it for free right now for the test period, or how is the pricing going to be?
And what's your plan for Russia?
So
Yeah.
Great. So if you were using our data transfer product before, we gave you that data for free through Google Cloud Storage for a period of 60 days. We'd start purging that data. You would have to download it, upload it to BigQuery or any other database structure that you wanted, and start paying for that. As I mentioned before, that ads data is stored inside our own BigQuery account, and we pick up the cost for that. So there's no cost for that petabyte storage of all your ads data. There's also no cost for when you query that data. So if you're just querying the ads data, no cost involved. When you bring your own first-party data into BigQuery, you pick up the cost for that. When you join Google data with ads data, with your own first-party data, you'll pick up the cost for the part of the query that's accessing your first-party data. It's basically, I can't say the word, but it's so cheap that a lot of clients haven't even seen bills from it because BigQuery gives you free usage.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Давайте поаплодируем и вернем подарки тем, кто их заслужил. Это, видимо, какой-то